Please hold comments until the select board chairman opens the agenda items for public comment. When addressing the board, state your full name, both in person and on Zoom. It is suggested that you enter your full name as your ID on Zoom. Minutes, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of June 2023.
I'll move them. Second.
All in favor?
Hold on, please. I have one change.
Yeah.
Page 4, line 21. Says Mr. Moore is moved to question the discussion of the marina beautification plan. I didn't question anything. I moved the question, which means by Robert's Rules of Order, I am simply calling for an end to discussion and bring it to a vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
We need a motion to amend.
Okay, a motion to amend.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Motion to accept the amended.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Appointments, recognitions, and resignations. Request appointment of Logan Blanchett as part-time seasonal public works helper at a rate of $22 an hour effective July 18, 2023.
Move appointment.
Second.
All in favor? Request appointment of Nick Jacobs as part-time seasonal public works helper at a rate of $22 an hour effective July 18, 2023.
Move appointment.
Second.
All in favor? Resignation of Edward Gantz from the Broadband Committee.
Move acceptance of resignation with regret.
Second.
With regret. All in favor? Withdrawal of Marcia Planting from the Village Center Planning Committee.
Move acceptance with thanks.
Second.
All in favor? Consent department reports, public works, highway buildings and grounds, solid waste. Investment and interest earnings performance for fiscal year ended June 30, 2023, unaudited. Thank you note from Florian Smith for the Frank Stanley Scholarship Award. Preliminary 2024 state valuation and interim revaluation adjustments. Hancock County Commissioner special meeting minutes from June 6, 2023. Hancock County Commissioner special meeting minutes from June 20, 2023.
Move acceptance of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Anybody want anything? Go out anything? All in favor? Thank you. Selectmen's reports.
I have something. I've noticed that at the town garage, the returnables are a mess. And it used to be the Boy Scouts that would take care of it, but they don't anymore. And I wondered if maybe we could offer that spot to another nonprofit who would be able to tend it.
I'm currently working on it.
Oh, you are? Okay, thank you.
Yes, I'm aware of it, and I have reached out to, it's the Cub Scouts,
Yeah,
and I know the
Yeah.
Scoutmaster, and we're trying to work out, he doesn't think he can do it all year round, at all
Mhm.
times, and I do have some additional nonprofits that.
yeah. Because somebody, I mean, could make a lot of money.
Yeah, built the containers and.
Yeah,
poor
it's
condition.
in rough shape.
If you need others, I've got some fundraising at the high school for trips, so
Yeah,
let me know.
something about
Those are, they are willing.
Brochure through, sign up for a month.
Yeah, something like that. PTO is another one that,
Yeah,
So do we need a new container of 3 or 4 of those?
I think we're gonna need a new container, if not immediately, very, very soon.
there used to be snakes in that.
Oh, really? Okay. Anything else? Okay, unfinished business. Discussion regarding the Promenade Park donation options.
That one, basically, the town voted $30,000 to go to that promenade park, and the promenade park project is, if it ever does come, it will be a long time, so the Mount Desert, Town of Mount Desert Economic Development Committee is asking the organizations that did donate to that park, what they would like to do with that. Would they like to have the money continue to be held in the event that that park is eventually built, or would they like their money back? Or as a third option, would they be interested in doing like a rededication of the amount that they donated into the skating rink project? Is they're working to try to make that a much longer season. So with the town, it's a little different because the warrant article specified that would be used for a promenade park. So your option sort of where it would be kind of to leave it as it is, or ask for the money back, or sponsor an article at the town meeting to see whether the town would like to repurpose that money into that project. So basically, it's sort of a decision. You can't by yourselves repurpose that because it would go to the town for a very specific purpose. So want to have that on your radar is how you want to go with that particular thing. So
Makes sense to have to go back to the town to vote on.
that's one of your options for sure. You don't have to decide tonight.
Yeah.
Or return it, and then if they do
Right,
decide to do something with the promenade park, they can do another request.
right.
And I
They
would think
wanna-
the skating,
Yeah.
I know, but I would think they should,
Yeah, do their own request, yeah.
So you could ask them to return it, right, and then just go back into what, general fund at that point?
I think there's lots of different options. This is a little, bit of a weird situation. I think because one of the options was that they would be willing to hold on to it. Right now, the town has said we want it used for this purpose. So in my opinion, the best thing would be to ask them to hang on to it until we can, potentially bring in a warrant article asking the town whether they'd like to repurpose that money. I think it'd be different if initially I thought that they were saying, we're not willing to hold on to money that we don't think we're gonna be able to use. And then you would kind of be forced to take it back, right? Because we wouldn't want it to just go away. But if they're saying that they're willing to hang on to it and it could be a promenade park, that would be the current standing of that money. Then I think the best thing would be to bring it as a warrant article to ask the town if they'd like to repurpose those funds, and then we could either accept it back. And it would just go into the general fund or whatever, or repurpose it as directed in the warrant article. That's kind of the way I would envision it, because if it comes back right now, that doesn't, in my mind, that doesn't help with anything, because that doesn't, increase budgetary appropriations or anything like it. So it seems to me like status quo might be the best option. We work on a warrant article to get the town's authorization for changing the status quo. That makes sense.
Yeah, that sounds, sounds
Sounds
good.
good.
Good advice.
So you don't have to really take any action, you just sit there, because at times you did take an affirmative action, so it could just be status quo.
I think on that side, or one of the options is please hold it.
Yeah. So maybe they should vote. to
I think
hold
we could choose that option and then, communicate with the Community Development Corporation.
it. That's,
That we
you want to
want to-
authorize us to do that, to choose that option. I think I'd like to hear it from you guys specifically, so it doesn't look like we are making that choice.
so I would move that we authorize to keep the promenade park donation status quo until the town meeting. And we can reallocate it at that time.
Yeah, we can.
The
bring
town
forward.
wants it, yeah, right, right. Second,
All in favor?
Thank you very much.
Request amendment to previously approved permit number 10-2023, public space special event application sustainability committee tool swap on the green, August 12, 2023, Northeast Harbor Village Green, to be held in conjunction with the weekly farmers market on August 10, 2023.
Yes, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I just wanted to point out that your policy on the public events, the use of the village green states that there will only be one approved event at a time.
okay,
So if you guys want to make an exception to your policy or whatever, I just wanted to point that out.
well, I like policies. I think they're there for a reason, and
What was the reason? I mean, do we need a motion or something before we should?
I think they wanted to piggyback with the farmer's market because of the amount of people that come.
Right, which,
Oh, Meg's here.
I could explain. That's it.
Good.
We had our first swap, so all of this is brand new, which I think everybody knows, we're just trying this out, as an idea. Our first swap was a good start, but what we learned a couple things. Good, right? So we were hoping to do, one, we don't need as much time, we need a smaller space. And the purpose mostly is for the year-round community to benefit from the opportunity to swap. And keep stuff out of the landfill, et cetera, et cetera. It seemed smart and that to be in a place where people are coming to get their farmers market stuff anyways. And they could do one drop, right? And then go, which is what we discovered. People don't hang around. People came, they dropped the stuff. Other people came and got it, and then it was kind of over really fast. Yeah, we're going to overlap. So the farmers market ends at 12, and we thought we could go, if it was okay, 11 to 1. So we wouldn't infringe on them, and we'd be very respectful of the fact that they're the dominant event. So that was the idea. And we do know that it would be an exception. I mean, if it can't happen, it can't happen, but it's no harm in asking.
Did you give any consideration, if I may, to holding it from 9 to 11 or from 12 to 2? So that it wouldn't impact the farmer's market at all?
We did, but that actually defeated the purpose of why we wanted to be around the farmers market.
yeah, I mean,
Because they started 9, the farmers market, so they're about 9 to 12.
Oh, they are 9 to 12,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah,
And so,
So 12 to 2? All the people attending the farmer's market would be leaving by noon and,
in that case, we would just keep with what we had, because the purpose was to, people that are, working, you know, don't have
Yeah.
much time.
the one-stop shopping kind of
Yep.
idea. I get it.
I mean, I think the issue though is that. If another event wanted to not take
Right, no, I-
advantage
I get it.
of, take advantage of the fact that a popular event was taking place. We would have made the exception already, and it would be more difficult for us to say that we don't approve. That's my
Yeah,
thought.
that's fine. I'm fine. It's just, we're experimenting. trying
Yeah,
to find
no,
a-
it sounds like a great idea.
A format that actually is good.
No, since a motion has to be made in the
Affirmative. right?
affirmative, then I would move approval of the request.
Second.
I just want to say one thing. So either way. I agree. I think it's probably a good idea. I don't know what the traffic is down there during the farmer's market, whether,
I do.
is it packed during farmer's market? Is it very busy? So if there were lots of additional people that came for this, I mean, that's why we do that. So that people coming for the swap that don't want to go to the farmer's market are faced with parking issues and so forth. So that's why we don't, but.
Oh, I think I understood what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, we don't, congestion.
Yeah,
essentially.
that's right.
That could be a problem. I have no idea. I walked to the farm.
So the other thing to consider is, making an exception and saying, if you make an exception. Then you can always say too bad later to whoever,
Yeah, you
regardless of your
can.
precedent.
Or the president.
Precedent. Okay, so we have a motion
I seconded
in a
it.
second. All in favor of the motion? All opposed?
Is it just as a side note, because I agree that it sounds like a good idea. I don't know what the farmers market organization has for rules, but perhaps they would actually allow you to have a booth.
Extremely strict.
Okay.
Yeah.
They
I
will
just,
not
it was just a
allow,
thought, because I mean, if you went in and you were part of the farmer's market, I mean, I don't think we can regulate what they do at the
Yes.
farmer's market.
No, and I
That's right, they could have all kinds of-
They won't let
wouldn't wanna do that.
And-
No, that's fair. I
come down.
I get it.
So you're back to your original date.
Yep.
Which we
Yeah.
approved.
Okay.
All right.
Unfinished business continued. Consider signing bill of sale to convey and transfer title of a surplus Kohler 80 kilowatt generator to the Mount Desert Island Regional School District for $12,500 as authorized by Article 30 at the 2023 annual town meeting.
I'll move it.
Second,
Good, all in favor?
seems like the fourth time we've talked about.
I know.
Generator.
No, we're finally, I think, seeing the end of
I think it's installed.
That is.
item B, Harbor Committee, Parking Subcommittee, final report.
How we use on
Oh, okay.
the.
Hi, guys. I'd just like to give you guys the final report of our parking subcommittee from the Harbor Committee. So it's gonna be a few minutes. Is that okay, or do you want me to just
Sure.
take questions, whatever you want? Okay.
Why don't you go for it?
Okay, sounds good. So I met with you guys a year ago. I gave you an interim report, and this is the whole report. So some of it will be previous information. I'll try to fast forward that a little bit, and then new information as well. And so the primary focus, again, was to ensure adequate parking for those conducting marina business. And that really is our driving motto of what everything we were trying to do here. And the committee really got, or the subcommittee really got started because we heard concerns about non-marina use, either exploiting the overnight parking or just abusing it. And the Island Explorer bus might be creating some additional traffic considerations, and really the inability for effective enforcement, meaning that if they wrote tickets, it wasn't much enforcement after that or follow through. So all that being said, I brought this up to the committee and we created a parking subcommittee. That's Jim Black, Story Litchfield, Chris Moore, and myself. And we had consulting with the harbor master and John Kearns. So John, the harbor master, and Dave Kearns, the police captain. All right. So that's sort of the framework. And we did a 2-year longitudinal study of going and surveying the parking lots and collecting data, and then analyzing it. So let me share my screen. That was one of the reasons why I was here. So that might be easier when I do all this. All right. Great. Okay. So here we are on the report. Okay. Yeah. So we did the 2-year longitudinal study, and it was pretty much the first year, 2021, was without the Island Explorer bus. And then the second year was with the Island Explorer bus, but it was limited capacity the second year. And I think it still is. And so then we do the surveys. Just to remind you guys real quick, here's the data sheet for the surveys. So we segregated the parking lot into different areas, boat owners, tennis courts, etc., all the way along here. And then we had folks fill out, how many empty spaces there were and the time and date. And then they would transfer that into a Google form online. And then we could crunch the numbers and do some data with it. So a survey would take about 8 minutes to do on average. So it wasn't really hard. It was just, a matter of getting it done. And we had a lot of help with that. And so I wanted to talk about, I guess the frequency. So the data quality overall. So we went for 90 days. We were really looking at July and August. But we wanted to go on the shoulder a little bit just to see what was going on. So June 15th to September 15th was the survey, so 90 days. And in there, we had 200 surveys the first year and 250 surveys the second year. I don't know why that 7's there. All right. And then, so that was the collection. It was randomized. We had 6 different people from the subcommittee, plus Jim Bright and Donna Reese helping out, varied hours, and between 3 a.m. and midnight, really, when we were doing the surveys. And we really focused the graphs and the majority of the surveys at noon time, because that's where the biggest concern was. So that was from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then while we were there, so I just wanted to say that I feel that the data quality is pretty high in terms of it being really randomized in that sense. So while we were there, we were able to make observations. Some of these were from 2 years ago, so you've seen them already, and others are new. But basically, cars parking across multiple lots, cars camping in overnight in the lots without permission. And then folks conducting private businesses. We've talked about the bike tours. And then this was a car detailing thing. They were doing it in the farmer's market. And then so that's some more private businesses. And I mean, with the bikes, I think now most of the bike tours don't come here anymore. And when they do, I think John goes out and meets them and just explains what the policy is, that they need to get a permit through the town's office, and then you guys work with them on that behalf. So so that's working out pretty well. We will and then we had some truck and trailer issues where we have some, the trailer parking was just sort of madness. What was going on there. So we tried a number of different approaches that I'll explain to you, and trying to improve that. And then I guess just as a little humor, this is someone who figured out how to put their trailer and their car in a regular spot over in the tennis courts. So we'll give them the Creative Trailer and Parking Award. Oh, and here, so this is an observation last year, last summer in August, when the parking lot was completely full. And this is what happens, cars just park everywhere. And this is really what we're trying to avoid, is just the parking everywhere. It's not good. So that's really, if we can have adequate parking for everyone that needs to be there, that's what we want. All right. So last year graphs were this, and just to remind you, I won't go through all of them, but this is the graph from the noontime capacity. So this is a noontime graph. These are the dates down below. Along the side is the number of available parking spaces at noontime. And so you can see it, the spaces diminish as the summer goes on, in the throes of the summer here. And the lighter shaded ones were when it was raining. So that might account for some of these spikes. But I guess the thing to note here is that this red line is at 85% capacity. And this dashed line is at 90% capacity. So you can see, from early July through mid-August, the capacity is just diminished here. There's hardly any really. And so this is what we were seeing, and like I said, we have graphs for all these. And so we wanted to see, we made some improvements, and we wanted to see what it looked like the next year, right? I mean, that's kind of the way it goes. So some of those first year improvements that we made were, they were small steps and they were noticeable changes, but that was the idea, it was small steps. So we changed some signs around. We installed some new signs, 1 hour parking signs, to make the enforcement a little more clearer. And truck and trailer parking signs, we tried to improve that. For parking enforcement, the harbor master, John, worked really hard to adopt the new parking system with the electronic devices. And I think, the police department and Dave Kearns and everyone really helped them out a lot in that regard. And so there was a focused enforcement where they gave warnings at first, but then they gave tickets. And the lots that were the easiest were the boat owner's lot, 1 hour parking, and trying to figure out some stuff with overnight parking if we could, and the trailer lot. So that was what we were going for. You can see here, this is like just a gentle reminder, like you're gonna get a ticket if you keep parking here. And then I think this truck's got 2 tickets on it because it just parked there for 2 days. And here's a boat owner parking with a ticket on that car. Another thing that we did for first year improvements was adding a stripe here to the farmer's market, or suggesting to add that stripe. And that just helped with the flow of traffic, as well as I guess giving the farmer's market trucks a visual reference to when they're in the road or out of the road. So I think that made it better for everyone in that regard. I already talked about the harbor master informing the bikes, and then the overnight parking permits. The big thing there from last year was that we just tried to avoid giving additional parking permits to Cranberry Isles folks, you know, in terms of when they go to the town lot and it overflows, they used to overflow into the tennis courts. And we asked for that not to be the case, because they would park there for days on end. I mean, overnight wasn't the problem. It was then during the day that space wasn't available for someone that needed to use it. So with all that being said, let's jump into, well, any questions up to this point? I'll just take a brief second to take a sip. All right, hearing no questions, let's jump into the 2022 data. So last year's data, we did it all again. And I want to try to describe this graph to you first so that you understand what you're looking at. This is a summary graph. And these are the lots here, the different lots. And then the number of days is up here. And this is at a certain capacity, okay? So this is when we were at 85% capacity, are the blue lines. So that's, you know, how many days you were at 85% capacity or less, meaning there were more spaces available. And then the next one is, what is it, 90? And then the last one is 100. So to just give you that visual reference from what we were talking about previously, you know, that was this graph right here, right? So, you know, this graph that I talked about just a few minutes ago, where that we had those lines, the 85% line and the 90% line. So the 85% line is this blue bar graph now, how many days, you know, it's there. And then the same for the 90%, and then 100% if we're right at the bottom here. And so the last piece to recognize about this graph is the colors. So the lighter shaded color is 21 and the darker shaded color is 22. So this seemed like the most appropriate way for me to represent all the data without going through a gazillion graphs. And so we see that, you know, all of these parking lots the next year, they're just a little more traffic, a little more parking than the previous year overall for number of days that they're significant, except when we get to the ones that had enforcement here. So 1 hour parking, they dropped here, you know, and then Harbor Drive, I won't, you know, it's not a significant piece of measurement. I mean, it's 5 spaces. And then the boat owners, this was significant. I mean, we're talking about, you know, days when there was over 30 days of 85%. And now it's down to, you know, 10 days at 85% there. And then this other one is, you know, at 90% was 25 days. And now we're less than 10 days again. So those are significant changes here. And I guess the one thing that I wanted to say at this point was, you know, well, what about volume, right? Did the volume drop, or did anything change about the volume of how many cars we're actually looking at? And so I calculated the average for all the lots at noon time for all the days, for each of the years. And it turns out that there's 175 vehicles on average parking at noon time in 2021, and in 2022 it was 171. So I would say, it's the same in that regard for how many cars we have for that spectrum of parking. All right, so second year improvements that some have been implemented already and some are proposed. So we changed the sign for we reworded it, parking for vehicles with trailers only. And here now we have trailers, trucks and trailers together. So I think that seems to be working now. We asked that they set up a farmer's market parking sign to direct people into the tennis courts before they loop all the way around into the main parking of the marina. And then, it's just misery in there because the cars are just circling trying to get parking. So we're trying to divert some of that for them. We also provided a letter of cooperation with the commercial fishermen and operators that just says, hey, look at, we're all in this together and we're trying to make it better for everyone. Can you help us out, kind of thing. And the other thing was that the police department agreed to check the tennis courts roughly at midnight for overnight violations. I know it's a hard thing to ask for because you got to scan each of the license plates and stuff, but they did offer to do it. And I think that may help as well, especially with habitual offenders of that. And then we were considering adding motorcycle parking to the trailer area parking, because not all the trailer areas get taken, all the spaces. So we think we can give up one space in that extra little section there and take care of that. And then what's the next thing here? Oh yeah, check with the traffic committee about creating some parking along one side of Huntington Road. So we're gonna see, these are just ideas we have that we're considering. And then what was another one? Begin a dialogue. I think we do need to begin a dialogue with the Cranberry Isles folks and try to figure out something to do with their parking there. I mean, it's just getting worse and worse. So previous concerns that were addressed, exploiting overnight parking. We've reduced the overnight parking permits. They're only coming through the harbor master's office now. And we're trying to do a little more enforcement on having people check the parking lots overnight for ticketing. The Island Explorer, we don't know if there was really there was no measured impact. It was really difficult to measure that, to be honest. But we didn't see anything significant in that regard. So one way or the other. And the inability for effective enforcement, that is completely resolved with the new digital parking system. I mean, someone else is going after the tickets and they are collecting the money now. So in general, that's what's going on there. The subcommittee, continuing as a subcommittee, we agreed to continue as a subcommittee to check in midsummer and then meet every other month as needed. And if we had any immediate concerns, John said, just let us know at any time what's going on there. Future considerations. So we're really feeling increased parking pressure from Cranberry Isles. And I understand, they're trying to find parking wherever they want, wherever they can. And it seems like they have a lot of workers going out there every day as well and doing work for them. So, and then the other thing is maybe to encourage vehicles to cycle through rather than staying stagnant for days. And a way to be able to do that is to reduce the overnight parking in the tennis courts by creating stricter limits on whatever that is. I don't know that anyone has the desire for that at the moment. And then the same with paid parking. Dave Kearns suggested that if we what he saw in Bar Harbor was that if you don't want people to stay all day, if you just charge them a little bit of money to pay there, then people cycle through rather than staying. And I'm not saying that's our solution. I'm just saying it's something to consider. And of course, you know, with all that being said, I mean, overall, the Northeast Harbor Marina is great. I mean, you heard, you know, last time that, you know, it's a gem in the sense of marinas in the area. Financially, we're self-supporting and, you know, and we're giving money to things you guys didn't even realize, you know, like the lawn care maintenance and all that. Capital improvements, we just finished the South Dock. We're going to do the North Dock ramp in the fall. And then we're moving on to the Maine Pier itself, and that's a project that we're looking at moving forward. And it's a shared community space. You know, we've got marina businesses and tourism, nonprofit organizations, you know, the farmers market, all kinds of goodness going on there. And now we even have improved parking. So with all that being said, I really, really want to say that everyone was a huge help in making this happen. And it, you know, it was a really a combined effort on everyone's part. John, the harbor master, super professional, really easy to deal with, you know, willing to work with us on everything at any time, always willing to listen to us and really trying to make improvements, you know, and it worked out really well. So kudos to him and his team for helping us out. And I really appreciate Dave Kearns and Jim Willis and Chris Worf's time for helping us out. And the subcommittee, I mean, you know, it's just a great bunch of people to work with. And we met a lot and we did a lot of work. So collectively, I would say it was about 120 hours of surveys, maybe 120 hours of meetings, about 60 hours for doing the reports. So about 300 hours we put in overall. And John, just to throw a little plug in here, you know, this was all above the bulkhead, as you say. But, you know, nonetheless, you know, we're trying to improve the marina in this way. That's pretty much it for me.
Great. Thank you, Howie.
My pleasure. Do you have any questions?
Great report.
I have a question, Howie. Thank you for all this work to you and your committee. It sounds like you really did a very thorough job and there are some actual improvements. Your concern with the Cranberry Isles is not concerned with their parking lot. It's when they spill over into the tennis courts. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. Yes.
Okay.
And I just have a question. Last I knew, there was a local business that had all their employees park in the tennis court parking. Do you know if that is happening?
I don't know. I know that happened last year,
Yeah.
over towards the far corner, we'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, technically they
I
can,
know it's public.
you know,
Yeah.
and so it isn't like we tried to do anything about it. And this year, I don't know if that's the case. Like, I just haven't been as aware because we stopped doing the survey.
Yeah, it's just a lot of people. Just curious. Thank you.
Great. Thank you again, Howie. Anybody else? Okay. Parking update from Captain David Kearns.
So some of the stuff that Howie just talked about, I wanted to address too, because it's kind of been what we've been working with Cranberry lots. Why I put this on here, I know that some people ended up in German's office, people have ended up at the PD, just kind of, I won't say unhappy with parking enforcement, but more, I think, surprised that we're doing parking enforcement more aggressively. But from Howie's stuff, you can see that it's kind of worked to help out their concerns, especially the tennis court lot and some of the other stuff. So Chris worked really hard with Jim Fortune to kind of regroup the Cranberry lot this year. So I'm gonna let you speak about the permanent side of it because it's a brand new, opposed to the numbering of spaces, we've actually implemented this permanent system that we had in our harbor. So I'll let you talk about that way.
Yeah, so we actually implemented that here, what was it, last year?
Last year.
In Mount Desert for a couple of residential permits out here in the Great Cow lot. You have some properties right here in the downtown area that don't have any off-street parking, so I think we have 3 residential permits out. And this year we decided to bring Cranberry onto that same system. So we're now have 3 towns in the same permit system. But it's worked really well. So no more numbering of spaces. As you can see in the parking lot, people can just simply park in whatever space is available. So it's resolved a lot of issues for us with people having their spot full and things like that. I think it's actually working out really well for the residents out there. And it's been, once Jim kind of wrapped his head around how the system worked, it's been a pretty easy transition for us. As far as enforcement is concerned, it's all within the same system that the harbor master's office is using to write tickets. Our enforcement system and permit systems all work together, so now all of our people only need one handheld device to enforce all of the parking in both towns, so it's pretty slick. As far as the parking lot out here is concerned, we do have a couple plans to do hopefully a little bit of a redesign once the fire department's done, which will include moving some of the special circumstances permits that they have now up along this side near the traffic island out here, and putting those back into the middle of the lot and moving our $10 the overnight spaces up along there so that everything's consolidated together in one place. Because I think that leads to some of the overflow issues that Howie's talking about, if people get confused, and we tried to come up with some signage and things like that to show them where to go. Currently the overflow is in the Gray Cow lot, so that's obviously quite a distance for someone to walk to go all the way to the marina. So we're gonna try to consolidate some of that. And when that's done, come up with a better idea for signage to direct people where to go and what not to do. It's just, we're kind of in that transition phase where we're just trying to make it all work until we get there. Anything else you want to
No,
know?
I think that was good. You covered more than I expected. Thank you. Is there any questions about how that's operating now? Or any?
Yeah. What, have you had, I park in the Cranberry lot,
Okay.
and so, and it's great. I mean, it's great because there were people in my spot last year all the time.
Yeah,
So, but how do you have to go around and check everybody, or how does that work? And what happens, have you had people parking there or shouldn't? And what happens if they do?
yeah, so we go around, the system is completely driven by license plate, which is when you got your permit. Like, that's the most critical thing to get right is your license plate, because when we check a parking lot, that's all we're doing is punching your license plate in. If it comes up as having a permit, you're good. If it doesn't, we issue a ticket. So the first month or so, we went very gently and issued a lot of warnings to people that didn't understand, but now we're into the ticket phase. I haven't got any calls in the last couple of weeks from Jim, so I think we're good. We've avoided quite a few tickets off the bat. I think we're starting to make progress. We have only 2 people generally that do. Kind of know the ropes, they know what's going on, they know all the vehicles, so it's pretty,
Yeah.
that's helps quite a lot.
We used to have little stickers for the windows.
Yeah,
Why did you get rid of those? It seems like a faster thing to have a quick visual to display
because that
that.
has no bearing on our permit system, and Jim was giving out multiple stickers to a family, and so at times you would have 2 to 3 people from the same permit holder parking in the lot. And so they had no right to be there. They only allowed us to have 1 spot in the lot.
Yeah.
With the permit system, all you gotta do is swap the license plate onto the permit that's active at the time. And so only 1 vehicle will be on that permit on any given day.
You're online.
But in the same thing with, and I know the handheld devices, they can search. We also have a plate reader that runs on the car, so really.
Oh, you can just scan.
You just run the car by the whole lot and it'll scan it and tell you which one's your car.
Yeah. Critical.
There have been concerns over the years about the parking by the fleet and that bad corner there.
Yes.
Yeah, I know you mentioned it in your. Any luck
So
with that?
we've written a couple tickets there already this year for people that have parked in on the road for offloading or loading. So one of the things that when driving down through there, there's enough apron right there by the fleet that if we maybe consider to do like a public-private partnership, we could expand that a little bit more to make like 2 or 3 like loading zone spots. If that's something the town's interested to do or interested to research. Something very similar to Seal Harbor with the yacht club over there, where we changed that right in front of their building to have just a loading, unloading zone only, rather than people coming in there to stay for a long period of time. So driving down through there the other day, which I haven't talked to Brian yet, but I thought I'd come here first to just at least float it, at least to do some temporary stuff, because I know that they all seem to converge there at once, and it causes a lot of congestion. But if we were able to rotate those out, where it'd be like a just immediate drop off and to cycle through. The fleet has posted their lot is private now, which is helpful, because I think some people can offload there quickly and then get off the street. But I think that's something that maybe we should look to in the future, because that is a very tight section of road there. And once you get 1 or 2 cars stacked up with that blind corner, it's really difficult.
And it's bad for pedestrians.
It is,
Yeah. So the fleet is rehabbing that area.
Right.
And they approached Public Works and asked about ways in which it could be reconfigured to try and improve safety. And so that's a project that's gonna be
Oh,
a
good.
little bit out into the future, but they've come to the
Oh, that's
the
great.
town already to start coordinating that. And I'll make sure that I coordinate with
Yeah.
Dave about how that gets
Yeah.
implemented, because we've got options available to us based on
Good,
where their plans are at this time.
right.
Yeah, it's what we've done over in Seal Harbor, we floated the idea about permits over there, but then it just, because it's such a short-term parking, we just make it as part of our parking route to make sure that it's not long-term parking, that people want to stay in there
Right.
for hours on end. Just to encourage that rotation, because we understand that people are just dropping off kids or gear or whatever, and we want to make sure that we're accommodating to that, but in the same sense, not creating the traffic congestion that it is. So I'm glad to know that. I probably should have talked to you before.
Imagine that, everybody talking to each other.
The other issue we've really had is the Harborside Drive. I do not have a good solution for that. I've gone back and cleared up, looked through some of the minutes. I think they've been talking about it since the late 80s. I think it really took a turn when MDOT decided they were gonna paint the fog line or the advisory white line on the side of the road. And we did have an individual get the vehicle towed there this year, which I think landed somebody in Durham's office, which the police department took some heat because we were seen as Bar Harbor taking over Mount Desert, and that we weren't being fair, equitable to town members in Northeast Harbor. And the egregious violations, it's hard to look past. We made attempts to try to contact and knock on doors and couldn't end up going. The one thing that I did notice recently, which I'm gonna like me to, I can go back to Maine Department of Transportation, because I've noticed in Seal Harbor, when you come down through Main Street now, they stopped painting the fog line on both sides, from just up from the fountain, and then it restarts up closer to the end of Jordan Pond. So I don't know what prompted them to do that over there, but it makes enforcement a lot easier for us, because you're not having people park 2/3 of the way into the travel lane, which is a straight up violation just by, obstructing the road. So if I can work with them and see exactly what prompted that, we could do something very similar to Harborside Drive and get a section of roadway that doesn't have a white line, which would make it as egregious when you're going through there, your vehicle park, 2/3 or 3/4 of the way of travel. So,
We'll park on the sidewalk there.
well, well, that's the double-edged sword. So yes, they're not designed to be driven on. I think from a public works standpoint, it's problematic to have people parking on the sidewalk. In the same sense, it's that push and take or give and take. And there are a couple spots there that you can get mostly off the road. But then when those are both, it tends to creep towards the blind corner, and then you've got people parking, like I said, 3/4 of the way of the road. So I guess I can start my conversation with Maine DOT if that's what you'd like, and the parking on the sidewalk, I don't know. If we take a hard line on it and start writing tickets, we've done that in the past, I got pushback if there really is no parking. The majority of the houses there, I think, have created some off-street parking, but I think there are still some residents there that don't. And I don't know a good solution from a town standpoint, as far as a lot or permit area that we could have them park in. It would be a distance for the residents, but.
It makes it very dangerous to walk there.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot more walking from the Astaku into town and
Right.
vice versa than,
Yeah, and you have to you have to squeeze it, or
Or
if you
be in the
can't, you have to
road.
go out in the middle.
Yeah,
of the
it's
road. And the
really-
cars go very fast in there. It's 25 miles an hour, but they're not going 25.
and then bikes are another whole,
Yeah,
So I don't know long-term. I mean, I can definitely go to Department of Transportation and talk to them about if they have any ideas. But I know state projects are funded and scheduled long times in the future. So unless the board has discussion on what we could do for some off-street parking for that area for residents. We talked about, residence permits and stuff like that, but just either section of that harbor side, there's really no duplication in there to put any off-street parking. And we try to do the best we can with, our discretion to make sure that we're not just ticketing everybody. And we haven't been ticketing for people parking on the sidewalks because it's getting wild.
Ugh. Yeah, I would be in favor of ticketing them for the sidewalk for sure. Sidewalks are a pet peeve of mine, but it's a lot.
We know
Really?
I can also go to residents there and try to just brainstorm with them as far as, what they have for alternative parking, to find out exactly how many people don't have off-street parking and come back and maybe we could have a further discussion on, maybe providing some options for these residents. I mean, it's the same idea from when we tried to do the resident permit in town, is for the people that just don't have the spots on the street and need a place to park their car, so. The only other thing that I wanted to bring up, and this is more of just a point of fact than it is any suggestion for Mount Desert. Bar Harbor increased their parking rates. To go along with parking rates, you need to increase your fine fee for your parking violations. So Bar Harbor actually went to $40 for a parking ticket. In Mount Desert, I think we're still at 30. So we're going to public hearing tomorrow, or no, scheduling a public hearing tomorrow at the council meeting. We still can maintain the head parking tickets in Mount Desert to be the $30 rate, but there's some, I won't say confusion, but it's just a little bit more difficult not to keep stuff consistent and maintained. But by no means am I recommending that you move your ticket violation to $40 an hour, $40 per violation, but we are doing that in Bar Harbor. Just to go to public hearing, so it probably won't be into the end of summer anyway. But just, I want you guys to be in the loop on that.
Thank you.
And from our standpoint, I know that we've started sharing a lot and doing a lot, and I think truthfully, some of the enforcement stuff that's happening here has fixed some of the problems. I know we had some of the Main Street business owners complaining about people weren't cycling or parking there all day. I think we've mitigated some of that, to encourage that rotation by just doing our time parking enforcement. So I haven't seen any real issues or heard from anybody saying that people are parking there all day.
Good.
So unless you guys have any more questions or suggestions, but I will go back to the Harborside residents and try to find that and talk to Maine DOT as well. So more just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page and that our enforcement efforts are consistent with having town instead of force.
Yeah, let us know how the public hearing goes.
Okay, will do. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Hey, David,
Thank you.
on August 7th, I think the Jordan Pond folks are coming back.
They are.
Yeah. So,
And I've already started gathering my data because we've got signs over there as well as Steamboat Wharf.
yeah.
So.
That's the annual event, so.
Yeah, I will make sure that I am here present for the 7th.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, new business. I'd like to skip down to item E. Sorry, you guys, you have to listen to all our parking news, but just, I'm assuming that's why you're here, discussion of the audit timeline.
Yeah.
Okay, just gonna leave that discussion.
You're looking to leave that
Yeah.
discussion?
You want me to start? Why we invited them here?
No, they know, we don't.
Okay, we're asking for somebody to start, huh?
No, I need somebody to give us an overview of. We're talking about moving our timeline up so that we aren't late for Wadman, is my understanding, correct?
And so Nancy and I have been talking and recognizing that over the last, well, number one, recognizing that the school system has 10 separate audits with 10 separate towns that we manage. And that London has to manage. One of the things that we have talked about is getting a sense of which towns come first, so that when they come through our office, offices that they're hitting those towns first. So that would be Mount Desert and Bar Harbor that are usually the first couple, and making sure that that happens. I think in recent years, in terms of the timeline, the increase of grants that has slowed the process down, both for the work that the business office does, but also lodgings, and those would be the CRF grants, which were around the pandemic. Those are cleared up, so that will help things go a little bit quicker. And then there are 3 what are known as ESSER grants that were supporting the work of education. And the first of those ESSER grants is cleaned up, so that's sort of out of the way and speeds up, and we're finishing up with ESSER 2 and 3. ESSER 2 runs out this year, and ESSER 3 runs out next year. And so a lot of those extra grants create extra time in the business office, and it also eats into Wadman's work as they sort of run through all of those invoices that were compiled through those grants that's going to help the schools get through the pandemic. But I think in making sure that Nancy and I are aware of the order that each of the towns need them, and we'll make sure that that happens. And we know that yours is by charter, and that there was a year where the audit was a little late, and so the town meeting had to be moved. That was a little while ago, but I know that it's an important part of the process of recognizing that we need to get theirs done first.
Can you hear Jake's perspective on, how does that sound?
100% agree that having put together 10 financial statements is a huge burden. And then the grant activity has gone up substantially. If you'll remember when Wadman was here, that was a piece of the puzzle that they were talking about. But Wadman did also express concern that the timelines were moving back, year over year, and was kind of the first time that he put it on the board's radar and said, hey, something needs to be done. And I think that's why we were trying to have a larger conversation about, is it reasonable to that if we threw out an October deadline for when documents would be sent to Wadman with the expectation that a reasonable turnaround from when you provide initial documents, 3 months or so should be, in my experience, is plenty to work collaboratively with the auditors to get your financial statements. And I think the reason we want to have this broader conversation is whether or not that's a reasonable timeline. And if it's not, are there budget things that need to happen? Are there business office, hirings that need to happen? Those are the broader conversations that I think we were trying to have here, because my feeling is that everything is happening in a timeline that I would expect when you're talking about preparing 10 financial statements. And so if we want to move that timeline up, I think we wanted to hear from you as to what you thought we would need to make that happen.
I think that also it compounded it, like this last year, with a lot of the towns, because of the school activity and the town's activity with the grants, created single audits, which require more testing and more in-depth, it seemed like there were a lot of things. Plus, with COVID, they kind of put the brakes on. There were some things that they were needing to take care of, or to have for new things that were coming up in the audit standards.
Mm-hmm.
And those kind of got pushed back during COVID, but now they're here. And so there were a lot of new things that they had to go over. So I think, we used to have them, they started like mid-October, they would come and start in. And now it seems to be in November. And I know, we can try to accommodate that again. It helps us in the long run if we can get a little bit earlier, because come November, I'm in the middle of doing 10 budgets. So it gets a little crazy.
No, absolutely, and I think the bigger key is maybe not necessarily only when we start it, but through the process, figuring out, you know, essentially where things are breaking down. Did Bar Harbor have a single audit last year?
Yes.
Okay, because Mount Desert didn't, was Bar Harbor the only one that had a single?
The harbor and, okay, you were close. I
We
think.
were very close. We were right under the threshold.
Trying to think of the high school was. And I can't remember, but at least the harbor was, and it wasn't just here, it was other places that. Had, you know, so it's just kind of a lot of what to do every single audit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, like I said, the bigger thing is to start the conversation and figure out, you know, are the resources, what if we had a goal of moving it up to where, let's say, financial statements were finalized by, you know, February, March. To me, that seems like a very reasonable timeline, but it has to be a reasonable timeline with the existing resources. And so I think that's why we wanted you guys to, because if you have existing resources for, you know, a April deadline, and we're trying to move it up to February, you know, that's a conversation that you guys have to be a part of. We can't just say, get it done by February,
Right.
when, you know, you guys are maxed out. And that's, I think, why we want to be collaborative, not, you know, you need to do this, you know, kind of thing. But one of the concerns is when we're going through the budget process, like you just talked about, it'd be really nice to have last year's audited numbers, because using 2-year-old numbers is obviously not ideal, especially when you're trying to do fund balance analyses and stuff like that. And so I think that's why we wanted to set it as a goal. And when Wadman brought it as a concern, that was when it was like, okay, we need to have a conversation if our auditors are saying that this timeline's slipping. And so that's what we wanted you guys to be involved in, kind of hear from you guys what you think the problems are and where we would need to make changes if we wanted to move that timeline up over the next couple of years.
I think with those extra grants
Mhm.
winding down. Help.
Sure.
Those first ones were a nightmare. To put it bluntly. But I think that, you know, with the resources that we have, obviously, of course, we come in RSU.
One set of financial statements is easier than that.
Yeah.
I agree, yeah.
And when you know, it's like uploading files to the state and things like that. If yes, you have one big upload, not 10 times. It's the repetition that, you know, also creates issues.
Yeah, no, but
But we will, you know, and you've been great to work with and try, you know, and getting things to us so that we can get everything posted. But some stuff runs through the town's books, so I have to get it from Jake to get it posted in our book.
I think that's the other thing that could potentially be collaborative. I think we operate very separately, but, you know, as you mentioned, you guys have the ability to prioritize schools based on, you know, them having different deadlines. I would imagine some of this is manpower, like when you're talking about, you know, the grant requirements and like just sifting through the data. On the Mountain Desert side, personally, I would find it reasonable that, like, if there are things that we can do on our side to help speed up our side of the audit, that's also something that we're very open to, that wouldn't require additional resources and everything, that I think we have the capacity to help. But that, anyway, that's all, that's that point, and this kind of, again, collaborative,
Right.
trying to figure out, I think it's a complicated problem, and it's also a fluctuating problem, because in the years where you have a ton of grants coming in, that you would potentially need to beef up staffing to deal with that, but then you might be left with excess staffing in the years where you don't have these things, problems. So, maybe more collaborative, between the town and the school might help offset those years where it does fluctuate. Yeah. So, those are my thoughts.
Okay, thank you, guys.
So can I just, so ultimately, we're hoping to continue the conversation and agree upon a October something timeline for fiscal year stuff to be closed up and ready for audit.
Yeah, I think-
Not, yeah,
sorry.
okay, that's just, I mean, I just want to, I hear a lot of, that's the eventual goal. We haven't agreed to anything or moved any dates or anything, but that's just getting everybody on the same page that we're
I think what they're
working
saying
towards
is that
that.
they want to go back to trying to move up the start of the audit, which is essentially the first timeline we were talking
Yeah.
about, where when they come and do field work, the presumption is that there is enough for them to start, right? And so if they can move that timeline up to October or so, and same on the town side, then hopefully the reconciliation process, the collaborative process that happens after that, we can move the timeline on that from being, 6-7 months down to, a few months and,
Right,
and
okay.
and get it in under the, with a little bit more breathing room. I think that's what we're going. Yeah.
Fair enough. Very good.
Yeah, so maybe you met together with Jim Wadman all together in the same room.
We have not.
Okay, maybe it would be a good idea for all the parties involved to come up with a concrete plan and then just let us know.
Good idea. Very good idea. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, guys, for coming.
Hope you enjoyed all the parking information.
I now I know when the word.
And where did you park?
Yeah.
Not on the sidewalk.
That's good.
Yeah, probably.
When we started using sidewalk, I'm gonna head fast forward to Jeff's one.
That's fine.
That's good.
That's
Good.
good.
I
I'll find a
fully support that.
friend with an electric wheelchair to go rolling
Okay.
down that, sorry.
Okay, public space special event application, neighborhood house family concert on the green, August 9th.
Move approval.
Second,
All in favor? Catherine M. Conley, doing business as Lighthouse Inn and Restaurant, 12 Main Street, Seal Harbor, request for liquor license renewal.
move approval.
Second.
All in favor? Authorized pay increase for Heidi Smallage from $15 an hour to $20 per hour to be effective 7/1/23.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor? Move signature on engagement letter from James Wadman regarding the audit of the fiscal year ended June 30, 2023.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor? Consideration of approving and authorizing the fire chief to sell a 2006 Spartan Smeel Rescue Pumper fire truck to Tom Wallace in the amount of $3,902.
move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
That's the strangest, that was just an out of the,
I have no idea where they pulled these numbers.
because both of them were these really odd numbers, and then I'm glad you included them in handwritten
So
form, because I was like, wait, something. Somebody else bid 3901 and he just happened to guess, it's not the price is right.
What's going to do with it?
You out there.
I've always been fascinated by private individuals that buy fire engines and,
Have you been by his house all the way?
I was thinking,
okay, maybe I will, maybe I'll shoot.
love some.
Don't you think
Oh, my.
fulfilling a boyhood dream?
Well, I find it personally, I find it intriguing, actually. I can see it. Okay, all in favor, and we voted. Aye. Good. Okay, request authorization to solicit competitive bids for a new 4x4 diesel powered front end loader for the Highways Division of the Public Works Department.
Did we miss H?
No, that's G.
This is G.
Oh, is it with the, I would move authorization.
Second.
Can I ask you, I know maybe it's the next question, but I tried to find a place where it showed how long that lease was and when you can buy out the lease for $1. I couldn't. Like,
Even in the CIP. It wasn't.
well, no, I just in the explanation of that you're gonna use the one you have that you bought for $1 at when the lease ended as trade-in, but I couldn't find how long is the lease?
You know, I want to say it's 5.
Typically, it's 5 years, but
Okay.
I haven't looked at.
I just did it, yeah, so okay. All right. Just seemed like something I wanted to know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because so we've had it for, if it's 7, if we've had it for 7 years, we've had it for 2 years. We've gotten 2 years of it without payment, without lease payments.
Without lease payment. We
Right.
owned it outright for those 2 years and
Yeah.
it's essentially got a little bit of value
Yeah,
in
and
resale right now.
you'll toss it in
And
as to reduce the lease payment for the next one. That's okay. Thank you.
And it's in the CIP.
Yes.
Well, if, you understand, if it was a 7-year lease, then we're not buying it out at all. Right, thank you. That's good. Appreciate it.
It's split between CIP and appropriations. All of these ones, there's like 3 different sets of equipment. That was the way it was set up a long time ago. And if you want to make a change to that, there's some infrastructure that has to move around to be able to, I think the last time we talked about, why don't we just buy them? Well, it's because the CIP has been set up for a long time to do this. And so we can make those investments, but we have to be able to,
Yeah,
have
no,
more-
I get it.
more money.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All in favor? Great. If authorized above, request authorization to lease a new front end loader and purchasing it at the end of the lease for $1 with 50% of the annual lease payment to be made from the Public Works Equipment Reserve Account 4050100-24500 with a balance of approximately $330,244.99 as of July 1, 2023. And the other 50% of the annual lease payment to be made from the Highway's annual appropriations lease loader account 1550100-55311.
Move authorization.
Second,
All in favor? Review and approve an update to service and supply contract CN 50551 with Transco Business Technologies to include office equipment lease.
Move approval.
second,
All in favor? Review and approve award of the town's fiscal year 24 paving contract to B&B Paving Inc. in the amount of $378,250 from account number 1550100-53250, leaving $31,750 remaining balance and authorization for Public Works Director Brian Henkel to sign the contract for paving on behalf of the town.
Move approval and authorization for signature.
second.
All in favor?
Do we, I mean, I don't know this B and B. Have we worked with them before? Has anybody worked with them before?
Ben has, I have.
Okay, okay.
Haven't done payment with B&B as of yet.
I mean, I know they came in at the low bid, but and that's,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ben does a good job of getting people that
okay,
he has worked with before to put in, submit bids. And they did come in as the low bid.
Yeah, I saw that.
They're qualified.
Good. very good. Thank you.
And, just shuffling things around a little bit, we had an anticipated amount of paving, but we had to shuffle it a little bit. We aren't going
Right.
to do the items. Part of that was a reclaim process by Merrill. Right, we shifted it, and that's just sort of what we kind of had to do as that amount in that paving has remained kind of
Mhm.
the same year after year.
And we're not gonna use any radio.
This is 2014 is the last time that B&B did paving for us.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, good, thank you.
Okay, all in favor? Consider authorizing Public Works Director Brian Henkel to expend the remaining budget balance of $31,750 in account number 1550100-53250 in the interests of the town for additions or revisions to the paving contract with B&B Paving Inc. if approved above for items such as bid quantity changes, escalator clause, cost increases, paving yet to be identified, or other appropriate uses of the funds allocated for paving.
Move authorization.
Second,
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Any other business? Yes.
Yes, you should take it, accept that as you do it.
So we have before us,
Ugh.
Jim Willis's resignation. He's going to a better place.
No, he's still alive. He's going to a less stressful place.
We will miss-
Better place.
We will miss Jim very, very much.
Indeed.
Okay. So do we have to vote?
What's that? What if you don't agree?
Okay.
Yeah, what if you don't accept it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm
That's an
sorry.
idea.
Okay, I have a motion to accept Jim's resignation.
So moved with thanks and sadness.
Second,
Okay, all in favor?
and good luck.
Good luck.
It would be nice to do something for
I'm
him.
sure that there'll be something happening between the two communities. So figure something out, I'm sure.
Well, let us know what it is. 'cause-
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. He's so wonderful.
Give
that
them
I-
a free lifetime parking permit.
I have one more thing for other business, and
Yeah.
I hate to go on that, but dispatch staffing at the moment. We have one dispatcher that's on extended medical leave to care for a family member. That leaves us with 3 dispatchers to cover 3 shifts.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So I'm working with both of them. They've been falling over, trying to help, but we've been working like 3 doubles in a row and 6 days a week for both of them. And some of the solutions that we've kind of tossed around is to move them to a 12-hour shift, which would help alleviate the amount of overtime that we're spending. And it would work. I think what we've kind of looked at is to do like 8 in the morning till 8 at night, which by call volumes is the busy time for walk-in traffic here. They've offered to continue to work 6 days a week and doubles once a week, which is really ineffective scheduling from a police department standpoint. So I'm going to continue to meet with them tomorrow, but I didn't know if I had any feedback from the board, if there was opposition, just to get us through a temporary 3-week, 4-week period, if we were to move hours for staffing here from 8 in the morning to 8 at night.
Do whatever you gotta do. but
Yeah, I think so.
Wish you could find somebody else to.
Yeah, and we put out work for part-time dispatcher. We had one that she worked a phenomenal amount of overtime or shift in the off season, but she had a summertime job, so we're down to open. And the one thing that I have told the dispatchers here, we have no anticipation of trying to shut down this dispatch. And I know that I have board support that we want to have somebody and maintain this dispatch.
Yeah.
So very important that they hear that from me, but also that they know that you have your support, that we're not looking to consolidate with Bar Harbor. It's just in these tight circumstances, I don't want to put them into a spot where they're working 6-7 days a week and
Right.
then I burn them out. So,
Right.
but we'll make the changes. I'll keep the manager informed. If anything, we just started a pay cycle, so it wouldn't even start till the 31st of July. But I'll have an update hopefully by the end of the week. And I anticipate that he's gonna make a full recovery and she's gonna come back to work and we should be just fine, but this will help us get us through at least to that short period where we get squeezed a little bit. It's just a hard time of year when it's our business.
Yep,
Great.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
I have one other,
Yeah.
other business. I'm going to be meeting with the director of the Chamber of Commerce on Friday. And it was interesting because she gave me a call the other day on the lease, I think, which we approved the last meeting. There's a clause in the lease that talks about rentals of the tennis courts. And I believe that that is a clause that probably at some point in time should have been taken out of that agreement, because for years, ever since I've been back here, we haven't leased, we haven't charged people to use the tennis courts. It's been free. Years ago, when I was on the board, that was something that was paid, but a subsequent board sometime after I left the select board and came back as town manager, at some point in time, the rental was eliminated. And I think that from what I understand, the reason was because they wanted to encourage people to come down there and use those courts, and there wasn't always somebody there available to handle the rentals and things, so that came out, but the thing is still in the lease, so I was wanting to get your guidance, whether you wanted that policy to continue, that you're not expecting the Chamber of Commerce to be collecting fees off of those courts. So I wanna make sure that-
We're not.
That sunsetted a long time ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
We just didn't take it out of
We
their
did take
expectations.
it out. I think with the next lease, we'll take that
Yeah.
particular part
Fair
out,
enough.
but she was confused a little bit.
Good. Do we have to vote?
No, I don't think so, because it's already been established, and it was just a matter of clarification.
Okay.
Take care of the rest.
Keep and ignore that part of the lease.
All right, so anything else? Yeah, I'm gonna read the treasurer's warrants. Approval and signature, town invoices 182404 in the amount of $991,709.21.
Move approval, signature.
Second,
All in favor? Approval and signature, state fees and payroll benefits, AP 2382, AP 2383, AP 2402, AP 2403, town payroll PR 2329, and PR 2401 in the grant for a grand total of $527,363.30.
move approval. Second.
All in favor?
One
One
abstention.
abstention. Acknowledgement, school invoices, AP 13, AP 01, school payroll PR 26 and PR 01, and voided disbursements V 2311 for a net total of $474,308.62.
Move acknowledgement.
Second,
All in favor? Great, thank you very much. Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
second.
Yeah, okay.
What's that? Oh, yeah. It's okay. 3 days. Or 2 days, I think you get on the stand. Third day, I was on the stand.
Look at that little bug.
I was taken today.
Oh, my God.
Oh, no. Oh, what a cutie.
Same thing Thursday, and then July 6th.
This is mine. I'm sure first one, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm glad to
Hey, live in
hear.
Eating
Go voting.
Just one.
Part of what we're about to make.
John.
Narrow my focus.
All right.
Thank you.
Sterling's is up.
Don't spend it all in one place, Andy.
I would guess, there's gonna be a lot of time spent legally because of the constitutional aspect. Oh, yeah, he asked me if I had fun.
Boy, you missed one meeting and they really pile up.
So you just want